Welcome to Riches and Rags podcast, episode number 1. My name is Tyler Delao. I am your host, and I am joined with Valentino Delao, the brother of my father's father. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for the invite. And my name, like you said, my name is Val Delao. And my name, to a certain extent, has some significance because you didn't mention it, but I'm going to mention it because it's very important to me, if nothing else, that I had a TV show that was seen nationally. It was called The Val Delao Show, and it was nationally syndicated in the United States, in parts of Mexico and South America. And many people are not familiar with it for several reasons. Number one is because they're too young, and my show stopped being seen in 1989, so therefore, if you were born after 1990 or so, well, you never saw the show. But number two, it was in Spanish. And if you did not speak Spanish or understand Spanish, sometimes you would not be familiar with the show. But it was on the air for 25 years. And I have to brag a little bit about the show, excuse me, because I was told many, many times that teachers in high schools and grade schools and whatever would tell their children and their students, if you want to learn Spanish well, if you want to practice it or whatever, watch the Val Delao Show. And that's how, little by little, it gained traction, and we were seen all over the country and parts of South America and Mexico. And that's it.
I mean, it's really exciting. It rings in my memory, too, that teachers definitely knew the show. Teachers knew my last name from your show when I went to school. And I don't remember you ever wearing sunglasses in your show. Why are you wearing them now?
Well, because I look better with sunglasses. I'm trying to cover as much as I can of my face, because the more I cover, the better I look. But in essence, I never wore sunglasses on your show. I mean, on my show. And the other thing, you were wearing sunglasses a while ago, and you look pretty good, and I wanted to kind of fit in to look cool. Because I wanted to look cool, but I don't think I looked very cool. I just looked like an old man wearing sunglasses. But anyway, this is the way I used to look. Oops, sorry. But anyway, I'll take them off in a minute.
Hey,
I'm just trying to play cool. Do I look cool? Wow. I look cool.
Yeah,
On a monitor, I look cool.
And anyone who wants to just go fact-check the show, there's a Wikipedia. You can type in the Val Delao Show in Google, and one of the first things you're going to get is a Wikipedia page, and it's been referenced as the I don't know how I would say this, similar to Johnny Carson, maybe like the Latin American version, or the Mexican version of Johnny Carson.
The similarity is that it was a talk show.
It was like a talk
I used
show.
to sit behind a desk, and my guest would come and sit on my right side, and we would talk to the guest and whomever the guest may be, and they would sing, they would talk to me, I would talk to them, and it was a conversational type of show, but then we had a lot of entertainment as well, and we had a lot of national figures and movie stars and Mexican stars, etc., politicians, governors, whomever it may be, and we had a lot of fun for 25 years, and the show was very well received, and you might ask me who were some of the people who appeared in my show.
There was lots, weren't there? You had maybe 180 episodes, right?
We had, actually, more than that.
Okay.
Because some of the shows we did not record, but we started on live, and then when videotape came in, then we started to record the shows, and I ended up with almost 200 one-hour shows, and we still have them. And one of these days, if the public would like to see them, we're going to put them back on the air.
Honestly, I think we could bring up one of the clips now. I picked out a segment from episode 45, and we can get that video up on the desktop, and we'll watch it. I think it was with a Mexican actor by the name of Julio
Aleman.
Julio Aleman. So do you remember?
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, I queued it up already.
Without sunglasses.
Without sunglasses. You're still dressed snazzy and in a suit with a tie. Do you remember this day? Do you remember this shoot?
Yes, I do. I remember all of them, believe it or not. And not necessarily in sequence, but I do remember when I did the thing and the show.
Okay.
And who were the guests, what type of questions I asked them, some of the responses. And Julio Aleman, are you going to play more of it or not?
Yeah, let's go ahead and cue it in.
If
we
you
can
play
listen
more of
and
it,
talk
you're going
about
to see
it.
Julio Aleman was a big movie star in Mexico. He made many telenovelas and many, many movies. And he was a good-looking fellow. And
Telenovela is a soap opera for English speakers.
He died of cancer a few years ago. He was a good friend of mine. I knew him for quite a few years. When I went to Mexico, I went to his home, and we talked, and we did all kinds of things. And I liked him a lot. He was fantastic actor, and he was, oh my God, talking about being popular with the ladies. Wow, this guy was really something. And but he was a big star, Julio Aleman.
Okay, let's give it a look. Let's see what he's got.
Una gran sorpresa porque el día de hoy tenemos a uno de los actores, uno de los astros del cine nacional mexicano más conocido, a Julio Aleman, que está con nosotros. ¿Cómo estás, Julio?
Bien, Valentín, muchísimas gracias por haberme invitado a este programa. Te felicito por conducirlo. Es el éxito que ha tenido este programa y te agradezco mucho la deferencia que haces al invitarme para a través de las cámaras saludar a todo el público que nos escucha y nos ve.
Hoy precisamente me estabas platicando que te quedaste fascinado con los globos que viste.
He looks smooth.
Sí,
I mean,
fui al
he's
centro,
he looks smooth. Like the energy about him, he's like looks like suave.
He was a fantastic actor.
Iba
He
yo
made
caminando
many,
y
many
de pronto vi
movies
que
and
estaban inflando un
telenovelas and
globo
whatever.
aerostático, esos que usan
really
acá.
something else.
Y me quedé embobado ahí viendo
But
qué
he's gone
maravilla,
now.
cómo los usan, cómo
He's
los
already
inflan,
passed away?
como una
Yes, he did several years ago, and I visited with him when he already had the cancer, and he didn't look like that anymore, but he still was a dashing caballero. And
What are you guys talking about right here?
well, I don't know because I can't hear the audio.
que
¿Nunca te has paseado en uno?
You can,
no,
you can
pero
stop it out if you
fíjate
want
que
to.
ya se me metió el gusanito, a lo mejor algún día pido un aventón, a ver si me dan un aventón.
Para las personas que estén sintonizados con nosotros y estén preguntándose de qué
He doesn't have
Yeah,
headphones in.
He doesn't have headphones. So I was trying to understand it. I think I remember you guys talking about globos and like the hot air balloons.
It's
and
possible. You know, Albuquerque is known for the balloon
ahead and pause the
fiesta.
video.
And all over the world, it didn't matter where you went, whether Mexico or South America or in the United States, they always mentioned the balloon fiesta.
Well, Albuquerque is known as the the international hot air balloon capital of the world, correct?
That's why you and I are full of hot air.
What year was that? We might even give a quick search.
Did you get the joke?
Wait, so what'd you say? That's why
That's
we're
why
full
you
of
and I are full of hot air.
Yeah. It almost went right over my head.
Exactly. You got to catch these things.
Yeah.
These little bits of
you're right.
these gems.
I was so full of hot air, like I almost
That's
missed
true.
it. Yeah.
In fact, I saw you in the beginning of the show. Lots of hot air.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I think like it wasn't an official thing. It was just a bunch of people just kept meeting here, and then more and more people kept meeting here from around the world. And I don't know what year it was officially started. Do you know what year the hot air balloon fiesta?
By the way, I knew very well, and I interviewed him several times, the founders of the balloon fiesta.
Really?
It was Ben Abruzzo and Maxie Anderson. Huh. And they also died. Maxie Anderson died. He fell out of a balloon, believe it or not.
What a way to go! I mean, if that's your profession,
and he wasn't even drinking. He was a nice, beautiful man, but he died by. I don't remember the details anymore, but I know one thing. I think he fell out or something about the balloon. And Ben Abruzzo, he died in a terrible death because he was a pilot, a very good one too. And Ben Abruzzo was the owner of the Sandia tramway. And Ben Abruzzo, what happened to him, as far as I can remember the details, his wife and himself and another couple, they got in their airplane and they were going to go somewhere. I don't remember where anymore. And some way, somehow, either the plane, they crashed or as they took off, and the plane caught fire and they burned to death, and that must be a horrible thing.
Yeah, where did the plane crash?
It was horrible, but I had the good fortune of interviewing Ben Abruzzo and Maxie Anderson. In fact, I still have those videos. That I went to the balloon fiesta, and there they were. And
and I think one of the dangerous things too with a lot of the crashes, these balloons get caught in the electric lines. The telephone lines,
Possibly.
right?
I don't remember the details anymore, but it was very tragic, very sad for all the people of New Mexico and the fans of the balloons, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, have you ever ridden a balloon?
I have twice, actually. I did.
Really?
I did when I was about 18 or 19 with my mom had 2 free rides, and she's just like, here, I'm going to give the tickets to you. It was cool. Me and Jose, an old friend of mine, we'll talk about him in a minute. I got a picture of him talking about our last name. But we went up together. We dressed in suits. We weren't 21, but when we landed, they just gave us champagne. They gave everyone champagne. I guess that's tradition, right? I don't know. But they didn't card us or anything. We thought it was exciting because we were under 21 to have a little glass of champagne. So
Yeah, that was good. I rode the balloon twice also, and in fact, we filmed it for the show. And in one of my shows, you can see me taking off or my taking off on the balloon, and with the pilot. And surprisingly, I thought I was going to be afraid, but I was not afraid because the sensation is completely different from when you ride an airplane. It's completely different. And so
how would you describe it?
it's just like being hanging by a giant hook from the sky.
Very serene.
And because there's
right?
hardly any movement at all. And I remember that I used to peek over the basket, and I would see cows and people and cars and whatever. And I thought that I would be afraid peeking over the basket, but I didn't feel afraid at all. And yet, if you take me up to a tall building, I cannot look over the edge because I'm afraid of heights.
Yeah, one of the surprising things too was all the dogs. Do you remember hearing all the animals too? Like,
I was always wondering many times, and this might be weird, but I was wondering if somebody there was with a gun shooting, they could shoot at you, with a rifle or something like that. That
up at hot air balloonists.
Yeah. They could shoot at the basket, and that would be toast for you or me because if you're riding the balloon, because a bullet can go through that basket.
Yeah.
And I said to myself one day, maybe they ought to put a little bit of lead or something on the basket just in case somebody dares to shoot at you. But everybody's good. People are basically good all the time. And I have a theory about that. Can you imagine, for example, in Albuquerque, we have maybe 800,000 people. Do you really believe that we have about 400 or 500 policemen on the streets watching over the safety of the city?
It's an interesting ratio.
And
it's a very
do
little
you
amount.
really think that 500 people can protect 700,000 people? They protect themselves. We all behave. We all stop at the red lights. We all are respectful to each other. And you go to a restaurant. I was thinking about that yesterday. In fact, we went to a restaurant, my family and I was telling my daughter, I said, I find it strange in a way that you can go into a restaurant with a bunch of people that are sitting there. We have a nice dinner. We enjoy ourselves. Everybody's enjoying themselves, and we're all perfect strangers to each other.
Yeah.
And for the most part, you probably will never see them again in your life. So that's called civilization. That's called people who are civilized. And when you're not civilized, then you can do all kinds of stupid things. But
there's definitely people out there.
I find human behavior very interesting and very rewarding in many ways.
If you were to put a guess, I'm gonna ask you to put a number. How many serial killers do you think are active in the United States right now? I mean, if we were to look on a government website like FBI or something, would they think how many? If you were to take a guess,
serial killers,
or just out on the loose in America.
I haven't got
now.
an idea, but I would say maybe 5, 10.
5 or 10. I think the last time I heard it was 50.
50?
There might be 50 just going around, but still, I mean. So it's not everybody, but you're very much right. Out of the millions and millions, there's like a few that are just complete deviants that just go off.
Well, how do you find out
the
if they're serial killers? Do you go and ask them and say, by the way, excuse me, sir, are you a serial killer?
I don't know. I guess the
Or
dead
you,
bodies that keep showing up, they got to be connected to somebody doing it, right?
I don't know. Is your father a serial killer? I don't know. I don't like to get into those subjects because they depress me. I want to think that people are good.
I like this. This is why I don't watch a whole lot of horror movies. I know people are big on horror, but it's like, why? I don't need all those images in my head all the time, you know.
And I'm glad that the TV channels, many times in a newscast, for example, they will at the tail end of the show or whatever, they'll show somebody doing a good deed. A child being pulled out of a well, or a dog being taken out of a lake, or some good deed of some kind. I think that's very rewarding and also very educational for the people who are watching the show. I even cry sometimes at some of these things that I see because I'm easy to cry. And by the way, I tell everybody who's listening to me, don't be afraid of crying because it's a wonderful emotion. Besides, as a doctor, I can tell you it's a release in case you, so it won't hurt your health in some way. Crying is a release.
There's connections to holding stress and anxiety
exactly.
and anger.
It releases the stress, it releases the emotion that you're holding inside. So if you feel like crying, cry. I cry in movies all the time. I see a scene that's emotional and I will cry. And if you sit next to me, you'll see me wiping my tears or whatever. And
what a phenomenon that we can create art that pulls the heartstrings of each other. The same in music can do that to
That's
people.
That's correct. And I have actually, when I have given speeches or I have been invited to speak before the Chamber of Commerce or something like that, sometimes I always include something funny, and then I include something that might be emotional or whatever. And in many cases, I have seen people in the audience wiping a tear off their face when I have talked about an emotional something that happened to me. I told you once about what happened to me when I was driving from Denver to Albuquerque. I stopped at a filling station, and this lady to gas up in Santa Fe, and this lady started yelling at me, and she says, "Oh, God put you to me, and God sent you to me," and I didn't know what she was trying to make, and I finally said, "Hey, ma'am, are you talking to me?" She says, "Yes, God sent you to me." And I said, "Oh, really? Okay, tell me about it." And she told me the story. She says, the reason why I'm saying that is because, she says, I have a little boy who is 10 years old, and he's dying of cancer.
Now, this is at the point where you're a doctor, right?
No, I was not a doctor yet.
You were not a
doctor
doctor
yet. But I was pretty famous, pretty well known. And she recognized me when I stopped getting some gas in my car. Incidentally, and on the trip from Denver to Albuquerque, I had convinced myself that I was going to quit TV. I was not going to be on TV anymore. I said, that's it. As soon as I get back, I'm going to notify the general manager and all the crew that works that I'm stopping the show, and that's it. I had made up my mind. Well, when I stopped at the filling station, this lady kept saying to me, "God sent you to me. God sent you to me." So finally, I talked to her, and I asked her what was going on. And she told me that she had a son, about 10 years old, that was dying of cancer. And she told me that they asked her son, her father and her husband, asked him what was his last wish. And they thought maybe he wanted to go to Disneyland, or maybe they wanted a toy or something like that. And the child said, "I want to meet Val de la O." And so I didn't know how to get a hold of you. She says, "You seem to be an important person. Where am I going to get a hold of you?" And so I asked God if she could in some way let me know how I can get a hold of you. And here you are, right here next to me, pumping gas. So she asked me,
like
would
on
you...
the highway, like in between cities, like at a gas station?
We were in Santa Fe. I was getting up gas for my car.
At a gas station.
At a gas station, and I was, and I had convinced myself that I was going to stop the production of my show. Anyway, she asked me if I would follow her to her home, and she lived in a kind of a humble little house, followed her around Agua Fria, somewhere like that. I think that was a street. And when I got close to the house, I saw a little boy in a wheelchair sitting on the door, and he was looking to the door in his wheelchair. He was very skinny. His arms were he had lost a lot of weight. The child was dying. And as I walked to the door, I saw him all of a sudden. He opened his eyes. He got real surprised and, Mama, look who's coming to the house. And I walked up to the house, and I said hi to him, and I hugged him, and I knelt before his wheelchair, and I spent about 15, 20 minutes with him. And when I got in my car and came back to Albuquerque, I realized that God had put the child to me, had sent the child to me, and not me to him. Because I had made up my mind that, and I realized all of a sudden that the show did not belong to me. The show belonged to the people who watched the show. How can I stop something that gives them pleasure or enjoyment? And I said, I cannot stop it. I don't care what kind of a sacrifice I may be making. I have to continue with the show.
Well, you had a huge audience. I mean, when you think about it, if you're doing something and you have no audience, never, I mean, are you really doing anything?
So, no, I had a big audience, and it even got bigger. At that time, my show had not gone national, but it did shortly thereafter, and my show went all over the United States, etc. Anyway, I came to the studio, and I got inspired, and I continued the show even more so many years later, and the little boy saved my show.
How many more years did you go after
I would estimate
that?
At least 15 more years.
Wow. Okay.
So he saved my show. So God works in mysterious ways. The lady thought that God had sent me to her, but it was actually the other way. God sent that child to me so I could continue the show.
Or it was both.
Or both.
Yeah.
It was a mutual thing. So anyway, I continued with the show, and I've had a lot of emotional things happen to me on the show. And but funny things as well. I'll tell you a cute one. This won't take very long.
Sure, and then I want to get back to, I got a really important question for you.
Yeah, okay. One day, sometimes I wanted to invite something unusual. So I got a call from this friend of mine who worked at the zoo. And I said, can you bring an animal to the program and we'll talk about it and see what happens? So he brought a little buffalo, a small baby buffalo. And we brought him into the studio. And right when we were going to go on camera with a baby buffalo, he decided to pee. The buffalo, not me.
Okay.
Anyway, he peed all over the studio. He must have had
on
a
the
gallon.
Stage, or?
He must have had a gallon of urine, and he peed all over the studio. And the crew was not happy with me because after we shut the cameras off, everybody had mops and all kinds of things trying to clean the urine off the floor. So that's another thing that happened.
Don't bring an animal into a film studio without
and if you bring him, make sure he pees before you come into the show.
That's a really good piece of advice.
What's the question?
Yeah, you seem to be very connected to God and in this way, and I want to trace back the history, and I think I've got a good jumping off point. My question is, have you always felt like this since you were born, or did this come along the way at some point in time? Did you develop a connection with?
No, I always had it since I was a child.
Okay.
My parents instilled upon me the belief in God, in our Creator. And during my lifetime, I have been more passionate sometimes, less passionate sometimes. And sometimes you tend to forget who is the boss, who is our Creator.
Do you think it's important to recognize your ancestors, your elders, remember the story they tell, and keep it close to you?
Of course, that's history, and see, in order to have a almost perfect human being, you have to have different things. You have to give that child education, for example. You have to give him care. You have to teach him how to bathe, how to brush his teeth. You have to how to comb his hair. You have to send him to school so he can learn, write, and whatever. But there's another aspect to forming that child. You have to teach him also not religion per se, but religious principles.
Maybe a moral landscape.
A morality.
Don't hit somebody.
Like the Ten Commandments, for example.
That's a good
a child has
point.
to be born and be taught some of the morality. When if you lose your morality, it's like not knowing how to read or what. You must be a moral person. We were talking about goodness a while ago, how good people are, and that's because they're moral.
Okay.
And they do not plan to kill somebody or hurt somebody or do harm to anybody. That's because we were raised in a moral world and in a moral society. And that's part of believing in God.
I believe that. Is my mic on? It kind of is acting a little funny, Cameron. It's like cutting in and out.
Is it?
Sometimes it's getting a little louder, and right now it feels quiet. Is everything's fine on that end, though?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we bring up this image from the Google Drive? I mentioned my friend Jose earlier, the one I went on a hot air balloon ride. He was also the singer of my band. He sent me a photo. There it is. Yeah, we can pull that bad boy up. Maybe make it a little bigger. Yeah, it says Paseo de Nuestra Señora de la O. And there he is pointing at it. Him and his family are in Spain right now, in Sevilla or Seville. I'm not sure how you would pronounce it.
Sevilla.
Sevilla, with an A?
Sevilla.
Okay.
The double L is Sevilla.
Sevilla, okay. So I looked into this. Have you heard of Nuestra Señora de la O?
Yes, I have.
Who is she to you? Because I had to Wikipedia it, and I got a little bit of it. I'd have a Wikipedia up too. But
in my amateur way, I'll tell you a quick story here. For many years, I have always been intrigued about the name De La O. And I was born with that name, belonged to my father, obviously. And you have it now because it belonged to my father's brother, etc. So anyway, I did some research when I was a student at UNM about our name. It turns out that the name dated back up to about the 11th century back in Spain, 1150, whatever it was. So then I was interested in possibly getting some kind of a emblem or something concerning our name. Turns out I did some research again, and the De La O name came from a very important person way back in Spain many, many years ago, like the 11th or 12th century. And so he was close to the king, whatever it might be.
Nobility?
Nobility. And then, so I said, well, if they have that, surely he might have had a coat of arms. Because important people in those years had a coat of arms. A coat of arms identified your family, and it was very important. Many people have the coat of arms, and your coat of arms had your own colors, the emblem. I think the knights, when they would go into war and they had a shield, on the shield was their coat of arms. And it was very important and part of the nobility. Turns out that the De La O family did have a coat of arms in Spain. So then I researched it, and I had a friend of mine research it, et cetera, et cetera. And many years later, he presented me with the official De La O coat of arms. And here I have it here.
Yeah, right on. This is a really exciting bring, too, because I didn't even know this existed until about a year ago.
Coat of arms.
If you point that at the camera. And we actually we took a picture of the image, too. It's in the...
The official coat of arms.
Try and navigate there.
And
let's see. Where's just the Gmail? Do we have just a Gmail, Cameron?
Got it?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up the image on the desktop.
You still want to do it?
Yeah, it's just the first one in the Gmail. I sent it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's fine. You can set it down now. We'll bring up an image.
Anyway,
zoom in.
I'm going to read just a little short paragraph.
Sure, absolutely.
What the coat of arms says here.
Yeah,
Oops,
definitely.
I'm not going to be cool anymore. Sorry, folks. Anyway, here. And it says here the surname De La O is found mainly in Andalusia and Valladolid, Spain. There are several churches for Nuestra Señora de la O. There we go. In Andalusia that honor the expectant Virgin Mary. The O signifies a vocal sigh of longing for the coming of the child Savior. The surname stems from the Spanish devotion. From Spain, the De La O families sailed to the Americas. In 1593, Catalina de la O came over to Cartagena, Colombia, with a group of relatives from Sevilla, Andalusia. They also pioneered Mexico, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Peru. By the 1700s, the De La O's families were serving at the presidios in Durango, Chihuahua, and Santa Fe, and also settled in Doñana and El Paso. Presidios were the prisons, And I'll tell you a story about the first de la O that came to Santa Fe. His name was, I think, Jose de la O. And Father Angelico Chavez, who I met, by the way, here, he lived now in Santa Fe. He wrote a book about surnames of New Mexico. And the first de la O that came to New Mexico, his job was keeper of the keys.
Keeper of the
keys. Keys. He kept the keys.
Like
what that meant,
physically, like
exactly.
He was a janitor, or?
What he said, what that meant was that the colony or the group of people that lived there trusted him with the keys to the arsenal or to the powder, or to the guns, because everybody wanted to steal the powder and the guns to start another revolution. But they entrusted one man to the keeper of the keys. In other words, he was the only one who had the keys to the arsenal and to the powder. So Jose de la O, that came to Santa Fe, was a keeper of the keys there in Santa Fe. And then he had, I think, a daughter named Maria, et cetera, et cetera. And then it tell you right here that some of the de la O's, there were two groups of de la O's that came from Mexico and from Spain. From Spain, they migrated to Mexico, and then from Mexico, they migrated to New Mexico. And they split at the border, and half of the de la O's stayed in Doñana County, which is the Las Cruces area, and the other half came to Peña Blanca. And Senator Montoya, the New Mexico United States Senator, was a de la O. His mother was de la O. And he used to call me primo, or cousin, and he came from the de la O's in Peña Blanca. So that's a little short synopsis of what happened with the de la O's. And here I am.
And here I am, too.
And in a way, I in a way, with all humility, I promoted the name de la O because my TV show was first locally and then nationally. And people remember the de la O very well, the name de la O. And I used to tell my grandchildren and my children, don't let anybody disparage and mistreat your last name.
That's an important thing of
very
keeping
important.
Your heritage.
I remember that I had a primo in California, and he used to call himself Dileo. Because the people who did not know Spanish, they would call him Dileo. And I said, don't you? So he came to New Mexico one time, and we were sitting in a restaurant here in Albuquerque, and the waitress asked him, what is your name? And he said, El Dileo. And she couldn't figure out what his last name was. And then she says, do you mean de la O?
Okay.
He said, yeah, de la O. And he says, yeah, my name is El de la O. And I said, when she left, I said, what a dirty shame that somebody else had to correct you to pronounce your name correctly. Your name is not de Leo. Your name is de la O. And when my grandson got his degree from UNM, I told him, don't ever show me that degree if it's not spelled correctly. And when they mentioned him during the graduation procession or whatever, they mentioned his name, and his name was Omar de la O. And I always insist, your name is not de Leo, it's de la O. And that's it. And anyway, let me just finish one more line here.
Sure, yeah.
And let's see. It says they settled in Doñana County in El Paso. In 1850, Esquipula de la O resided in Taos, and in 1870, the de la O family lived near Peña Blanca and another at Doñana. See, it says there, for generations, they have been leaders of their communities. A tradition continued today. There's the de la O family. And this is I have the coat of arms, the official coat of arms from Spain. Mm-hmm. And my friend, what's his name? I keep forgetting for a moment. See, I'm all excited about this thing here.
It's okay. Yeah, it's neat.
Elmer Martinez. Elmer Martinez, who is a dear, dear friend of mine. He appeared on TV many times with me, and he's a historian, and he was the one that did the research for me and presented to me the coat of arms of the de la O family. And that's it. Anything interesting?
Yeah, you brought something else too, didn't you?
That's correct. Where is it?
This is on the floor next to you, behind you.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, when I was at UNM, I had several professors. Well, two actually. Professor Ruben Kovacs, Dr. Kovacs, and he was in languages, and Dr. Sabine Ulibarri. They were my professors at UNM, and I loved those two guys. They were very good to me. When I was at UNM, I struggled a lot because I was very poor. I didn't have any resources, etc., and I struggled to go to school at UNM. And I had an aunt dear to me that put me up in her house, etc. Sometimes I didn't have money to eat, frankly, and the guys at the cafeteria would steal bread for me. And I said, can you steal me a roll or something? And they would bring it to me, and I would eat that because I didn't have any food sometimes.
But you wouldn't steal it yourself?
No, I wouldn't because they wouldn't let me into the cafeteria.
Oh, okay.
But my friends who could go to the cafeteria, had money to go there, they would steal or bring me some of the bread that leftovers or whatever. Anyway, Professor Cobos and Olivari were my dear friends. They became my dear friends. In later years, when I became a doctor and Dr. Cobos became elderly and he got sick and whatever, I used to go to his home all the time and visit him, and I would take him medicines and supplements, etc. And I noticed that on top of his piano, he had a helmet, which is the one I have in my hands.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty
This
sweet.
is the ones that the conquistadores used to have.
That's where the leaders of the community comes
Exactly.
from. Is that conqueror blood.
And it's metal. It's metal. And this is and right here you see where they put the plumes and feathers or whatever they did.
Does it fit?
Well,
Can you try it on?
yeah, it
I think
does.
that's
It's
backward.
very
I think that's
uncomfortable.
backwards.
But there it is.
Is that forwards?
See?
That's pretty neat.
But anyway, this was on his piano. And I told him, I said, someday I'm going to see if I can get me a helmet like that. These are the helmets that the Spaniards wore when they came to the New World. And
it's really
and he
light.
said-
It looks heavy. I just want to mention that to
it's
anyone. who
heavy. It's heavy.
No,
And
to
it's-
me it felt
and it's
light. I picked it up. It was
Solid,
like-
and it's solid metal.
You think it's heavy?
It is heavy.
I thought it was light. I expected
Can you
it to be
imagine
heavy.
wearing this thing in combat?
Yeah. I mean,
And I make
it
a
would all
joke of
add
this.
up.
I make a joke about this
Yeah,
helmet
what is
because it's supposed to be 500 years old.
Okay.
But I told somebody one day, and this is a joke. It's
Okay.
not.
Right.
I kept looking at the helmet, the joke now,
Right.
and I said all of a sudden, right over here somewhere, I saw "Made in China." But that's not true. This is the authentic thing.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe
Maybe it was.
Coronado wore this, or Juan de Oñate, or whomever, or one of the soldiers who came to New Mexico.
It could have just
But
been
anyway,
a regular Jose
I have the
Schmoze.
helmet here, and now I have it on top of my... Oh, by the way, Professor Cobos said to me when I was telling him about the helmet, he says, I think I'm going to try to get me one. He says, you don't have to. You can take this. This is yours. And he gave it to me. And I hold this helmet with high esteem because I really appreciate this. First, because he gave it to me, and secondly, because I like it. So I'll let you wear it if you're worthy of it.
I'll try it on, and I think. Oh,
No? Are you worthy of it?
I don't know. Do you deem me worthy of it?
Go ahead. See if you can try it.
I'll try it on. I think with the feather would go in the front, right? Oh, I'm wearing headphones.
Yeah.
Mi cabecita.
Oh, my goodness.
I have a tiny head.
A tiny. Okay, well, there we go. Well, anyway, that's a story about the helmet and the story about the De La O's.
And with stories come fortunes. So I think, would you like to grab a fortune cookie out of there? And
Yeah, I think it's about time to get fortune cookie.
I'll let you
You
ring
know, I
the
was
gong
talking about-
gently. I've got a sound
What?
effect. I've got a sound effect too if you want to ring the gong gently.
To what?
Ring the gong gently.
Oh, that's
yeah,
it.
Your stick is...
We have to ring the dong.
Or you can hit it as hard as you want. I think this is the right
Okay,
button.
let's do it.
Give this a shot.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. Now we open the fortune cookie. Let's see.
Can I be honest with you?
What?
I had this gong when I taught chess here in Albuquerque. I taught chess for about 3 years. I wasn't that good. I was kind of just like an after-school extracurricular activity teacher. And we would use this for mindfulness. We would get the kids to chill out for about 2 to 4, 5 minutes, just sitting down, being quiet before we play chess. And they really enjoyed this thing. And some of them would hit it really gently, and some of them would just smack the heck out of it. And I'm going to be honest, you were on the side of smacking it a little bit hard.
Well, that's because I'm a hard smacker.
Do you need help opening that?
Oops.
You got it there? I'm thinking these things are jumping out.
It fell on the ground.
Yeah, grab another one. And no need.
No, I can grab this one.
Are you sure?
We don't want the fortune cookies to go to waste.
All right. Fate has spoken.
That's right.
Fate has spoken.
Let's see. Open the fortune cookie. You want me to read it, or will you read it?
I'll read it since I kind of typed them in. It's an Einstein quote. A clever person solves problems. A wise person avoids them. So a clever person will try and solve a problem, but a wise person will just avoid it.
So it's better to be wise than to be smart. And a wise person is a smart person anyway. I believe that a wise person has... A lot of people are smart, but not too many people are wise.
So do you think wisdom is a higher degree of intellect?
I think it is. It's a higher plateau. I'll tell you something.
Well, I want to ask a question off this point. So do you think someone who's maybe like not very smart at all, do you think that they could gain wisdom? Right?
They could do what?
Do you think they could get wiser?
Yes, they could.
But they would have to get, that would mean they'd get smarter as well.
Exactly,
Okay.
because let me tell you what happens, and I can vouch for that.
Okay.
The older you get, the wiser you get. And some of the mistakes that you would make as a young person will not make you will not make them when you're an older person. That's why people ought to cherish the older peoples in their societies. And I'm glad I'm here with you, for example, because I've learned a lot from you. There's another saying that says, if you want to feel young, hang around with young people. But if you want to learn, if you want to be wise, then hang around with older people. And I said this before in one of your programs, or our programs, that in China, when I went to China, I became aware that the Chinese culture, they value older people, and because they're wise. And you don't hear a wise young man. You always talk about the wise old man. And I can remember when I was in a little town that I was raised, in Hatch, New Mexico, the chili capital of the world, that every small community, whether it's a small town or whatever, they seem to have one, possibly two, older people who are wise. I remember my father and my mother would have some kind of a problem. And they said, we don't know who to go see. At that time, people could not afford an attorney. And even if there's one, they might not be there, one close by, etc. So my dad one time was having a problem with, I don't remember the problem, but he needed a solution for this problem. And my mother told him, why don't you go see Señor Evangelisto Candelaria?
Sounds like maybe a sage or an oracle, right?
His name, to see this man whose name Evangelisto Candelaria, that was his name.
Okay.
And he was an old man. He was an older man. And so my dad went to see him. And later on I found out that the people from the community, when they had a problem, they would gravitate to Mr. Candelaria, and he would give them the solution, or at least what he thought about it. And I remember that about an hour or two later, my dad came into the farm where I was raised, and he had a big smile on his face. And my mother said, what happened? He says, he gave me the solution. He told me what to do. And years later, he used to go to see Mr. Candelaria because my dad was in his 30s, 35 years old. And so I found out later on that many people would go see Mr. Candelaria. So the point I'm trying to make is that every community has one, possibly two people that the whole community revolves around because that man is wise. He's wise, or that woman is wise, and they get advice from that particular person. So I think that you're right. A wise person is a higher plateau than a smart person. Everybody's smart to a certain extent, but not everybody is a wise person.
That's a lot.
God, you're speechless, aren't you?
No, I'm just I'm digesting it. I mean, I think it's important. Yeah, I mean, because when I think about my neighborhood, it's like, when I go out and walk around, I don't have that, I mean, maybe if you were to go to church, if you had a pastor or a preacher or like a priest or something, but like that's I feel like that kind of stuff is being removed from humanity in a sense, because we've got this internet and everyone just kind of hones in on their own little world, their own little echo chamber out there on on the web, so they're not going out in their communities as much as they used to be.
I have a story about a wise man. There's a king that very rich, obviously. He was a king somewhere, I don't know where, and he would get up in the morning and would look through. He lived in a castle, and the castle was high, and he would look down at the street, and he noticed that a homeless man, would always be sitting against the wall of the castle every single morning. And the man had nothing to eat, nothing. He wore raggedy clothes, etc. And yet the man seemed to be happy. So, but he felt sorry for the man, the homeless man. So one day he got one of his couriers and told him, he said, "Go tell that man out there who is homeless, sitting against my castle, that I am the king, and that I will give him anything he wants to make him happy."
Oh, okay.
You heard the story.
I don't know. No, I'm interested.
He said, "Tell him that I am the king. I can give him anything he wants to, riches, food, whatever he wants." So the messenger went down there and talked to the man. And he said, "Sir," he says, "I am the messenger of the king, and the king has seen you for many days, that you come here and you lean yourself against the wall of the castle early in the morning, and he wants to know if you need anything, because he's able to able to give it to you, whatever it may be." And he said, "What would you like to have?" And the man looks at this guy and he says, "Well," he says, "I really don't know." He says, "I have everything. I don't know." And let me think, see what I may need. And he was looking at the guy and this and that. He said, "Oh, yeah, I know what I need." He says, "What do you need?" He says, "Would you step aside," he said, "to let the sun hit me? Because I was getting warm up with the sun rays."
Yeah, okay. All right. We're talking about Diogenes here. He's an old philosopher. I love this story.
That's correct.
I love this story.
That's correct. So that guy who was sitting against the wall of the castle, now there's a wise man, see.
Okay.
So just because you don't have to be rich or educated or good-looking or famous or anything. You could be very wise, because humility in many cases will make you wise.
So it's let's see if I can phrase this right. Those who have most are those who are content with the least. So if you're happy with a little bit, then you're really ending up with more than the person who has no stopping point of what makes them happy as far as material value.
Well, there's a saying in Spanish that says, "No es rico el que mucho tiene, sino el que poco necesita." Now let me repeat that one more time.
A little slower.
No es rico el que mucho tiene, sino el que poco necesita.
It's not riches what you have.
One is not rich who has a lot, but one who needs very little.
Yeah.
See, you don't need a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was trying to say.
That's my philosophy. You don't need a lot. You don't need to have 5 cars. You don't need to have 5 homes. You don't need to have 5 wives or 5 suits or 10 suits, whatever. You can only wear 1 suit at a time. You can only wear 1 pair of shoes at a time. You can only be married to 1 woman at a time, or live in 1 house at a time. In fact, I was talking to Kenny Rogers. You know who Kenny Rogers is?
No, who is Kenny Rogers?
You don't know who Kenny Rogers is?
No.
God, I can tell you young.
Yeah.
Kenny Rogers is a famous singer.
I just live under a rock.
famous singer.
Okay.
They died a few years ago. And one time I had the good fortune of talking to Kenny Rogers. He had a home in Palm Springs, and my cousin happened to live close to his home there in Palm Springs. Anyway, I was talking to Kenny Rogers, and he told me this. He told me that he had a home in Atlanta or Nashville or somewhere, I don't remember exactly, and it was like a 10,000 square foot house.
That's a mansion.
A mansion. Obviously a mansion. And obviously Kenny Rogers was very wealthy. He was a very popular singer. And I asked him, he says, "I'm going to sell it. I'm in the process of selling the house." And I said to him, "Why? Why are you selling the house?" See, I was thinking like a poor person, thinking of owning a mansion. And he says, "I don't need it. I have a house in Palm Springs. I have another in Hollywood. I have another somewhere. I don't need the house." See, there was a time where he was getting rid of the house. He says, I've been to the house several times, and every time that I go, I sleep in 1 bedroom, and the house had like 10 bedrooms. I just sleep in my bedroom, and that's it. I don't even go through the whole.
It sounds spooky, like it might be haunted.
Well, it's possible.
Have you ever?
Somebody has to live in that house.
Have you ever experienced any paranormal activity in your life? Any like ghosts or any bumps in the night?
Yes, I have.
That are just a little too peculiar.
Yes, I have. Once.
Oh, so it's so significant.
I had a secret love.
Oh, so this ghost was your secret love?
No, it wasn't my secret love. But my wife and I, many, many years ago, when I was young and good looking, and now I'm just good looking. No, I'm not even that. But anyway, when one day we were sleeping in our bedroom, and she fell asleep, and we were sleeping together, and somewhere during the night, I woke up, and I looked towards our feet, and I saw this figure of a man.
How big was it? All black? Was it
like it was like a shadow.
Was it tiny, like a kid, or
no?
big?
It wasn't tall. It was about maybe 5'7", 5'8", something like that. It wasn't tall. He was wearing a fedora hat, the one Frank Sinatra used to wear, and he had an overcoat. I remember that he had an overcoat, and he was standing at the feet of our bed, and I kept looking at him. And the first thing that I thought was somebody got into the house. And this person came into our bedroom, and he's trying to do harm to us.
Okay.
So he was standing there. And so my next thought was, how am I going to defend myself against this figure that was in my bedroom?
And all the meanwhile, you're laying in bed.
Laying in bed. And I was real quiet because I didn't want to make
sleeping.
any noise or something. I didn't want to wake up my wife because I thought maybe she would get hurt.
And he was right at the foot of the bed.
Exactly.
Whoa.
Right at the foot of the bed. This man with an overcoat and a hat was standing there.
Could you see his face or his eyes?
That's the one thing I could not see, but I could see an outline of his face, but the outline only, and the whole body, the overcoat. He was a slender man, maybe 150 pounds, and he wasn't too tall, 5'6", 5'7", and I kept staring at him. And then I said to myself, this is maybe a what do we call figment of your imagination, something like that?
Yeah.
I said, no, I think you're imagining this thing. So I closed my eyes, and I said, okay, let's see if you're not imagining this thing. And then I opened up my eyes again, and there he was. So I said, this is getting serious now. Now I started to think, how am I going to defend myself against this figure? So I said, okay. So what I did, I started bringing my hands underneath the blankets like this, little by little by little, so that when he approached me, I was going to throw the blankets at him, and then I was going to tackle him in some way, okay? So I started bringing my hands like this underneath the blankets, because if he jumped me, I'm going to throw the blankets at him. So I did that. At the precise moment, I threw the blankets at him. I jumped out to throw the light switch, and he wasn't there. And by the way, in the process, I stepped over my wife, and she yelled in pain because I had stepped on her, and I hurt her a little bit. And that was my encounter with a phantom.
Do you think it was maybe a time traveler or maybe an alien, an extraterrestrial?
I believe that possibly.
You threw the blanket on him, and
I threw the blanket at him. I don't know if I threw it that far away, but I threw the blankets at him, and nothing happened.
Just gone.
It's gone. And I think possibly that I was imagining things, or he was a grandfather that I used to have.
Okay.
And he probably came in, he was looking at me.
Just checking you out?
Checking me out.
I mean, that's... why wouldn't you if you're in the afterlife, right?
Yeah, he was checking me out. And he probably was saying, boy, what an ugly dude this guy is. God. Hey, he's my grandson? Oh, my goodness.
Man, but it was so significant. It's the one thing you remember at it.
It's correct. By the way, you need to tell the people who you are.
Who are we?
Who are we?
After the Dela bit, we can throw up that ticker. They'll see it.
Yeah, that's right.
We are Riches and Rags podcast. I am Tyler Dela. You can find us on any of the main social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We'll have a credits page at the end and some links in the descriptions.
And I am Val de la O, star of stage, screen, television, and outside toilets.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. I'm trying to show some humility.
Okay.
And by the way, talking about outside toilets, I grew up when we used to have outside toilets.
You were really rags to riches, right? Not really,
Well,
not really rags, but I mean,
and we
like
had no
you
toilet paper.
Started on a farm. You were doing things like picking
Correct.
chili and cotton, right?
That's how I picked cotton, I picked chili, I milked cows.
And you
and
turned it around, or you made the best of it.
And we had outside toilets. We had no toilet paper per se. We used to use the Montgomery Ward catalog or Sears or whatever at
Did
that
you have
time.
Electricity?
At the beginning, we didn't even have electricity.
Damn.
We used to use kerosene lamps.
Damn.
Later on, when they brought electricity to our farm, then we ended up with electricity. But even then, we didn't have electricity. I remember my mom and my dad used to have kerosene lamps. We would carry the kerosene lamps from one room to the other so we could read or see whatever. We used to watch TV by kerosene lamp.
You used to watch the TV next with the kerosene lamps because
Yes.
they were still around.
Because we had
when
no
the TV
electricity.
Well, how would you be watching TV without the electricity?
I was hoping you would.
Yeah.
I thought you would not be able to catch that.
No,
That's
I
true.
was like trying to put two and two. Yeah, I was imagining the kerosene lamps.
We had no
making their way into
TV
the
either.
future.
We had
Yeah,
no TV. In fact, the first time, somebody asked me the other day, when was the first time you saw a TV set? I said, when I came to Albuquerque, my family came to visit my Uncle Juan in Albuquerque, and I had a cousin of mine, his name is Hovey, his last name is Hovey, and he says, he was about 16, 17 years old. He told me, he says, he could drive already. He was driving around his own car in Albuquerque. And he said, I want to show you something you're going to find very intriguing. And I said, really? So he took me to this store. And I remember the name of the store, Appliance City. And on the outside, we stood outside the store. What do you call the glass at whatever the store?
Display?
The display. The display. There was a small TV set in the store facing the street, and they had it on. And I could see pictures of people talking, etc., on this little TV set for the first time in my life.
Did it feel like that scene in Harry Potter when the people are moving around on the newspaper? Have you ever seen,
I never saw.
You never saw Harry
Potter
Potter?
thing, but
Okay.
but I saw this thing, and I asked. The first thing I asked him was, "That is amazing. I'm aware of radio that they can send voices and music by radio waves, you know.
Right.
But now they came up with a way to send pictures through the air. I couldn't figure it out.
Seems like sorcery.
Amazing, because about 5 or 6 years later, I was on TV myself. And then my picture was all over the country, you know, whatever.
This is a nice transition point. Cameron, can I please see the links? And there's one I think we can start with. It's the droid. I can't read them. He does a obstacle course. Let's see. It's before Spot.
Spot with police
No.
and Mika robot wakes up.
No, it's one of the first one. Or no.
Shepherd puts out fire. Lemurs use millipedes. Dolphins using pufferfish.
Let's keep going down. Can you keep reading them? They just sound interesting.
Boston Dynamics timeline. Atlas does parkour.
Atlas does parkour. Atlas does parkour. That's a good one. He was reading off all the titles of the links. So, it's that one. We got to make it bigger.
So zoomed out?
Yeah, so this is a real robot. This is where we are today. This robot's name is Atlas. It's a company called Boston Dynamics. They have been working on robots for quite a while, and I've personally been watching their videos since about 2010 or 11. I remember the big, bulky dog bot that eventually turns into Spot. So it's kind of interesting for me to watch this happen in real time. We're going to watch a quick version of the development, but these are real, and
It's crazy.
They're more physically capable than a lot of unfit people.
Can you do a backflip?
I can't do a
Well, I
backflip.
certainly cannot do that.
I can't do a backflip. You might want to put your headphones in, too, because there's a dancing video we'll watch, too, with some music that's kind of fun. Let's go to the evolution of them. They're in your shirt. A little higher? Yeah. So there's one, it's the Boston Dynamics evolution, right? Or the same kind of thing. So here's, 2000. This is where I remember them. I remember watching these way back in the day. I think it's, let's see here.
Okay, I have a question.
What is your question?
Can they have sex?
Can they have sex? That is actually a really, really good question. Not these ones, but there's going to be, if not already, an industry for sex robots. If you think about it, I'm sure you're familiar with the old blow-up doll.
So, if the robots have sex, are they going to have baby robots?
You think you're talking sex with each other? I thought you meant like sex with humans. Humans will make them to have sex.
We have
with
those
them.
already.
Yeah, yeah, but full-on androids. I don't think they're going to reproduce in the same way. I mean, if you think about how a robot would make more of itself, you can't hear nothing anymore.
No.
It's okay. You can.
I can hear you now.
Now you can hear me. Okay.
No, I'm trying to be funny, but at the same time, it's a serious question.
It is. No,
these robots, as smart as they are, can they have sex? And if they can, do they have them with another robot? And if they do, are they going to have baby robots?
There's actually an article I read. I didn't have it queued in, but there's these little Pac-Man shaped nanobots. You can't hear it. Is it? How about now? Can you hear it now? You might just have to play with them and put them.
Let me see. Just a moment.
They might just be bad headphones. They're supposed to be decent studio monitors, but the guy did tell me that some of them.
No. Oh yeah,
they might
there
cut,
it is.
They cut in
I
and
hear
out.
you now.
Okay, they might just be cutting in and out.
So, what's the answer to my question?
Will they have sex? Well, see this. There's nanobots. Let's see, Cameron. Can we also look up this article? This is a good point because I don't want to get this wrong. There's little microscopic nanobots shaped in a Pac-Man shape. It's okay. You can just take them out. I'll return these or change them out.
I cannot hear you.
No? Can you hear anything?
I can hear you now. Right.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. Yeah.
So anyway,
they absorb little particles and build more of themselves. And there's a little video of them doing it. Oop. And scientists are saying it's a completely new form of reproduction. It's not like sexual reproduction or like how plants do it. It's a new. They're building more of themselves in this new way. So it's I don't know. It's far fetched. I don't know. I think they'd be able to build each other.
Well, I'm glad I'm not going to be alive.
I don't know. You might be. These ones are already here. We can actually check out Amica. There's a link. This is an article people can check out if you want. I just want people to know I'm not just spewing hot steam up my ass. So there's Amica. Waking Up is a good one. All right, here we go. This is cool.
Wow.
Now this is a different company. And I honestly think it's going to be about a year or 2 years before we're going to start seeing little robots walking around with us regularly, because some cities have already seen police spot dogs. We'll get into that, but what do you think? Does it look fake or does it look real?
It looks real.
It is. I think it's
real. You put clothes on this robot, you would think it's a person.
Yeah, and there's different people that put skins on them. There's one where I like where she like defends herself. She like pulls down her hand.
I was asking you about, again, going, and I'm not trying to be silly or humorous, whatever. If a robot can have sex with another robot,
let's go back to this. Definitely,
I gotta go back to that.
Let's go back. Yeah,
it opens up a lot of questions.
Sure,
I'm not trying to be funny.
No. Yeah, let's.
What happens if you see two robots having sex? They accuse you of being a robot
So well,
Molester?
we have to define sex. Like, all right, let's ponder this. Are they the robots that were made for sex with humans, and now they're using those fake human sex parts to bang each other, or are they like these androids that have no sex organs that are just rubbing up on each other? I mean, just maybe touching each other's faces and downloading information.
I don't know. I'm just asking. But if we can define it as sex, one robot with another robot, then the people that are watching it, are we robot molesters?
Voyeurism, I think.
Voyeurism?
Voyeurism is the term where you watch another person. Yeah, I mean, people do all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, there's going to be people that do it and people that don't. I mean, pornography is a huge industry.
And if a robot has sex with another robot, maybe somebody will try to...
To film it?
No, have sex with that robot.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll happen. I'm sure they're going to make... there's a really interesting game I've played on the PlayStation called Detroit Become Human, and it's a multi-timeline game, so you can play it over and over and you can get different results, but there's a huge aspect of there being brothels with androids, and it's a whole thing. So I would say assume that yes, that there's probably going to be a traditional sense of sex organs on some bots and some special brothels, but there might, what is more interesting, be a connection of consciousness between. Now we're talking about, like, what is sex? Like, really, it's not just a physical getting it on. There's an element of sex too that I think includes intimacy, the connection of the soul between one human and another human. I think is a huge, very important element of sex. And if robots are doing something similar, maybe they're touching each other in a way and transmitting information that they can only do it that way. I mean, that's a huge thought right there. I never thought that. But
I thought something else. The robots may be very human, but they'll never be completely human because they don't have a soul.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. How can we define or determine that they don't? What if they do start becoming self-aware? Think if we're atoms, right? We're carbon, right?
Exactly.
Silicon is just a different atomic structure, and if you've got information and energy passing through that different type of atom, you've still got a body that wakes up and starts to think, I'm here. I don't want to do the job that they designed me to do. I'm going to go do this other thing and go have sex with robots.
I don't want to do this podcast.
So I don't know. Do you think robots could eventually have souls?
No.
No, you don't think so?
The soul comes from God.
I think they could. Well, who's not to say that eventually that type of body could be advanced enough to harbor the intelligence of a soul, right? It's peculiar enough that we're meat sacks that do it, right?
Well,
we talked about animals. Animals sentience, and maybe some of them have souls, right? So is it only humans?
Animals don't have souls.
Animals don't have souls?
No.
Just personalities?
Exactly.
Okay.
No souls. See, an animal acts according to instinct.
It's connected to the one Mother Nature divine.
DNA, a pig has the DNA written into him the moment he is born. And he has a DNA of a pig. And he acts like a pig, and he's going to be a pig the rest of his life. But a human has also the animalistic characteristics of an animal, but he has a will. God gave him the will. And when you die, or I die, or whomever dies, God, if you believe in this, God will judge you on the actions of your will. Because you and I can choose. We can choose to make this podcast or not. We can choose to do whatever we do. We have the will. And God gave us that freedom to do whatever we want to.
So I want to keep going with this, and I really want to keep driving the point. I think there's a little more to animals and Mother Nature that might meet the eye. They're just for fun, but I mean, we can keep getting in depth. I'm not saying this is the evidence, but it's just fun videos. There's an orangutan. We can go with the orangutan driving a golf cart. And I think there's got to be some sort of free will behind this, right? Check it out. There's this bad boy, And my favorite part is when that's just a fun one, right? That's not so serious. It's an ape driving a golf cart. I mean, is he just doing it just because he doesn't know what he's doing? Or do you think he wants to be... Do you think he's enjoying going for a cruise and checking out the other animals? Do you think that might be a little fun for him or her?
I'm sure it is. I'm not sure it is. I'm not questioning what you're saying. I'm just saying that he's still, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but he's still operating on his DNA, on instinct. You and I operate on our will.
Okay.
Which is two different things.
Let's go into a little more. There's a dog that does, and I think honestly it might be the same German Shepherd, and it might be. There goes my mic cutting in and out again. This might be a limiter or something. So again, this dog is wearing clothes, which is peculiar. But check this out. It's a dog that puts out a fire. We can make this maybe a little bit bigger. Nope, doesn't want to do it. That's fine. So if you see off to the right, the dog is in the corner. And then a person put a cigarette in the bucket over there, and there's smoke. It starts to come from the bucket. The dog tries barking to alert the person, like, hey, you put a cigarette in the thing. So he's like, all right, I'm going to just handle this on my own. He grabs a hose, turns the hose on, brings it to the bucket, and sprays the hose in the trash can. It's a sequential set of events. You could train it, but that's a lot of and he turns the hose off, and I think maybe you could have trained the dog. His owner comes out after, which makes me believe maybe he's training the dog to do this, saying good boy, good boy. But what do you think? Do you think the dog was just acting on instinct, or do you think maybe there's a little bit of will in that dog thinking there's something wrong here, I want to make it right?
He was just trained to do that, like I've trained you to do this podcast. But no, we're different than the animals. We're different. We have will.
Do you think that's because the aliens mixed their DNA with us?
What was that again?
Do you think that's because the aliens mixed their DNA with us, with the monkeys?
Why don't we talk about something else?
Let's go to the last dancing. There's a dancing video. We can end on that. It's kind of fun. This is the robots dancing together. This is back to Boston Dynamics. And no, but we can actually even get a little political after this, because there's Spot on the left.
Boy, that's something, huh?
I just realized it's not my mic, it's my headphones. All right. What would you do if the police showed up to your door one day with the little dog bot? They wanted to, or maybe somewhere else. Would that freak you out if the police started using that?
Would you repeat that, please? Huh?
Would it freak you out if the police started using robots like this to start cracking down on people for whatever they wanted?
They might someday. We don't know.
I mean, I've got a video of police doing it. There's
I don't know.
Some
people, I just don't know. I'm not that smart.
I'm
wise, but not smart.
It's a perspective. It's an opinion. Not that you're right or wrong. I just like it's interesting to me to see what you think about it. Not that it's right or wrong. Not that it's good or bad.
That's correct. I don't know.
But you have a perspective.
And I'm not going to find out because I'm going to die sooner or later. And so will you.
Yeah. When the asteroid hits.
But that's the way the cookie crumbles.
So
okay, ask me a question.
Ask you a question. Do you want? I don't think you want to see animals getting high, do you? Dolphins passing the pufferfish, lemurs using millipedes as narcotics.
No, I'm not interested in what a lemur will do.
No,
I'm interested in what you're going to do in the next 5-10 minutes.
What I'm going to do in the next 5. Cameron, what's on the sheet after the reaction videos? We'll bring those up another time. That was enough. We're probably. That little paper on your desk. I forgot to bring mine in the room.
Email reads. What are that?
Email reads. We don't have any. We need them.
No one send us emails?
Correct.
Yeah. You can hit us up on the Discord. You can hit us up on the email address. You can try DMing us. It's better to keep it organized for us if you're sending it to the email delaostudios@gmail.com.
Eventually, I would like people to be able to call us in some way.
We'll set up a burner or
with us.
a proxy phone number. I'll look into that, and we'll get it so they're not calling. Just like we said, you don't want to give them your actual email address. You don't want to give them your actual phone number either. So,
but we could have a phone number into the studio here that
we'll get
people can call us if they say I don't like you or I think you're stupid or which is very probable too.
Very probable.
Or you're not a wise like you're claiming to be or whatever. Or I have a soul or I don't have a soul. Whatever it might be. But it would be interesting to hear from the people who are hearing us and watching us, and they can say whatever they want on that. And I love to talk to people.
Well, the premiere episode will be dropping on January 18th. We're releasing a bunch of promo videos and all the social media for the next 2 weeks.
So how do they find us on the 18th?
How do they find us? Well, I have already created all the pages everywhere. So all it's going to be doing is if you want to give your video to someone that you know, you can. But it's going to be on YouTube at
how do they find us on YouTube?
Everything's tagged Riches and Rags Podcast or delaostudios. So delaostudios. So Twitter is delaostudios. Instagram, we've got Riches and Rags Podcast and delaostudios. You can also find us on YouTube at Riches and Rags Podcast. I will always be tagging your name in every one of the full episodes. Will be tagged Riches and Rags with Val Delao. So when people are typing Val Delao, Riches and Rags, it's going to be the first thing that pops up.
And in my Wikipedia may come up.
Your Wikipedia, will come up.
You know what? Funny. I have a friend of mine. Every time I run into him, he says to me, "You know what?" He says, "You're the only friend that I have that has Wikipedia." That's what he tells me.
Like
all the time.
a Wikipedia about you?
Yeah, about me.
Yeah.
You're the only one that has Wikipedia.
It's a big deal.
And it's hard to get Wikipedia. It's not easy. I remember when we were trying to get Wikipedia, the normal person cannot get Wikipedia because they do an investigation about you and if you're famous or you're not or what's the reason for being on Wikipedia, because they would be wasting space if people will never tune into Wikipedia. And at least that's what the impression that I got. So you got to be famous to attract people into Wikipedia. And in my case, I didn't even do it myself. I have a nephew who did it for me. And he did a lot of research. He worked up very hard to get me into Wikipedia a few years ago. And I have to give him credit. His name is Ray Herman Fajardo. He's my sister's son.
That's what's up.
He lives in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and he still does. He adds parts to Wikipedia, and
he's the one putting the miscellaneous videos of your show on YouTube, right?
Yes, he does.
Yeah,
he puts different shows, and in fact, he asked me the other day because people have been asking for more stuff, and we have a lot of movie stars and all kinds of people who appeared on our show, etc., in segments that are very funny, etc. So we're going to next few days, a couple, 2-3 weeks, we're going to load up more stuff in Wikipedia on the Val Delao show.
Oh, that's awesome. I think it's important to get all that stuff on the internet.
What's the time?
Yeah, we probably are hitting about 1 hour and 10 minutes or 1 hour and 15 or somewhere around there, right?
We're at 1:20.
1:20, so we're right about there. We can wrap it up about now. Yeah, I think, let's see, the next thing on the list after email reads is just last thoughts, right?
Yep.
So let's throw on that. I picked out another video from your show. It's about you getting acting lessons. I don't know if you remember it. It's episode. Do you have it pulled up? I have the time written on the sheet too.
Was that when I was sitting on a sofa or something, and there was a girl? And
yep, that's the one. You don't want to watch that one? I thought it was funny.
I remember this. I
thought it was funny, and it also goes to show like half your show was in English too. It was bilingual.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
I can tell you a little bit about that episode.
Sure.
I don't even. That I did everything possible for my wife not to see this thing. This particular show, and the reason why is because this girl, the guy's a director, and what he did. See, it started out this way. I asked him one day because they were actors from the Barn Dinner Theater, and they used to do my show all the time, different actors. Mm-hmm. And this guy, he and I became very good friends because he used to come in and would do all kinds of plays and stuff at the Barn Dinner Theater. So one day I was talking to him and the girl, and I told him, I said, you know, you have a wonderful job. I said, because when I go and see your plays, you always get to kiss the pretty girls. And in my show, I said, I never get to kiss anybody. And that's what I said. So, hey, would you like to learn how to be an actor? What I did not know is that he had gotten the girl into what's going to happen later on. I did not know that. So he said, why don't you play my part opposite this beautiful lady that was there?
Okay.
And he sits me where I'm supposed to be, where he was sitting, and he's feeding me the lines. Say this to her, that she returns the lines to me, and at the precise moment, he pushes me against the girl, and she kisses me.
Oh, I actually didn't see that part when I was curating. And
I didn't want my wife to see that.
I wonder if they cut it out of the actual video.
I don't know
because
if
you
they
wanted
did or
them to.
not.
Because I could tell you were a little uncomfortable, and that's why I picked it. It's funny because you're like you're awkward about it. It's funny, not in 100%.
Run it to see if they actually did it.
Cut a little bit, but they were playing with your hair for like 2.5 minutes, and we didn't need to watch 2.5 minutes of them playing with your hair.
And turn a little towards.
Turn just a little bit.
Look at my hair.
Okay.
I want to, wait a minute. No, we got to go. Yeah,
Wait a minute.
that's better. No, don't worry. I can't. You're wonderful.
Are you ready to start the
We're ready. Start the scene, Connie.
She's too close.
Action.
She's too close.
She's too close.
I was uncomfortable, believe me.
Jag kommer tusentals mil för att se dig där framåt för ju fit att du ska bli fader till mitt barn.
Now, here's what you say. Now, sincere.
Watch, she's going to push me.
Sounded sincere.
The director's cracking himself
What
up.
I just
He's
said
having the kick.
was the truth, all of it.
Why have you come here?
Why have you come here?
I have come thousands of miles to see you because I want you to be the father of my baby.
Now, here's what I use the triple lurch layer, right? So you look at her and then look directly into the camera.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Camera guys messed that one up. There we go.
Oh, my heart is beating.
Now, what do I do now? No, I'll give you the next line. Oh, deliver this line again, Connie.
Oh, my heart is beating.
Stop.
Mine has stopped.
Oh, jeez. That's so damn cheesy.
I hope you're not angry with me.
Angry? Why should I be angry?
Did this guy who's feeding you the lines, did he write?
He's feeding me the lines.
But did he write the script of this too? Was this supposed to be his part?
He knew the script, but I didn't know the script, so he was feeding me the lines.
But-
and I'm talking to the actress.
You could understand
And,
it's so important.
All right, now here's a line. This will get you off the hook at home. Would you do me a favor? Would you call my wife?
Would you do me a favor? Would you call my wife?
Your wife?
Yes, because I think I'm losing my mind.
Yes, because I think I'm losing my mind.
Turn the camera and smile again. Val, you're wonderful. Did I do all right? Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. That's right. I think that
Maybe that the push was at the beginning because I didn't.
No,
see-
it was towards the end.
it was towards the end.
Maybe if you let it run, it's possible that
it happens
then.
again?
I don't
There
know.
where I was. Pardon me?
Sure. Come
I
on
didn't
over
really
here.
watch it past this part.
I like
Val,
it
that
exactly
was
this
wonderful.
Eat your heart
I know that. I remember that he pushed me towards the actress, and she kissed me.
Really? Oh, and she kissed you.
Oh, she kissed me, and I was a little embarrassed to tell you the truth. I'd never done that
I
before.
wonder if they cut it out of your show because I didn't see her kiss you.
Maybe it was on my orders. Maybe I had them cut it,
Yeah, because
or maybe.
you've already left the couch. Or maybe you hopped timelines. Maybe that did happen, but this timeline of the universe you're
I
in,
don't
that
remember.
didn't actually
I would have to see
happen.
the show again. But
Maybe it was-
it's I don't remember anymore. But it's possible that I told my director to cut it out of my. I didn't want people to see me kissing this girl. Not that it was a bad kiss or nothing. It was just
But you had a wife.
I'm not used to things like that, and it was embarrassing to me, and I didn't want my wife to see it. I just didn't feel comfortable about that.
Yeah, there was a lot of...
I can imagine what actors go... That's why they call it acting, because you're really acting, Can you imagine kissing somebody on the screen and your wife is watching a movie or whatever?
Were you ever invited to any weird parties for super famous people?
No. Well, I was invited to parties, but I never saw anything like that. And no. It's funny. People ask me a lot of things. For example, they asked me, one day I had this performers from Mexico came into town, and I was presenting him somewhere. And one of the performers asked me, one of the actors or singers, whatever, asked him if I could find some cocaine for him.
Okay.
And he said, "Can you buy me some cocaine somewhere?"
And you said, "Of course."
And of course. And I said, "Of course not."
Oh, of course
because
not.
I didn't know where to buy cocaine. I was not familiar with cocaine. I'm still not familiar with cocaine. And here I'm an old person already. I've told people in a joking way, I've never seen cocaine in person. I mean, I have never seen cocaine. I never seen cocaine like this fortune cookies here, for example.
Okay.
I never seen it in a bowl or in a cup or in my hand. I've seen pictures of it. I see movies, but I've never seen cocaine in my hand or close by. And maybe I'm being naive or whatever, but I never been to somewhere where they have cocaine. And so I told him, I don't know where to get your cocaine. So then he told me, he said, "Do you have a friend of mine? Do you have a friend who is a doctor?" I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "Well, doctors can get me cocaine."
What?
And in fact, I did ask a friend of mine who was a doctor.
Okay.
And I said, "Do you suppose you could get cocaine for this fellow?" He said,
talking
"Yes,
like
I could." He said, "I could write a prescription for it." He said, "But they monitor us doctors very closely." He says, "I wouldn't want to do it."
Okay.
So I told him, I said, I can't find any cocaine for you.
Oh.
And I certainly do not know where to get weed or any of the other things, although they're very common. But I'm very naive. I was never into that culture. And maybe that's the way I wanted it to be. Because I have a friend of mine who he passed already, but he wanted me to get involved in. He offered me some money one time to go get a package that he had buried under a tree somewhere, and he says, "I'm being watched, so I'll give you $500 if you dig it up and bring it to a room or something." I said, "I cannot do that." And he said, "Well, then I'll give you $1,000. I don't know what it was in a package.
No, that's some sketchy stuff. You don't want to be a mule.
But I did not want to get involved at all.
Don't be a mule. That's a good life tip.
So no,
people get hurt that way.
And that's why I have lived a beautiful life, a very productive life. God's been good to me. I have a wonderful family. You're part of my family. And I would never want to stain my family or in some way that my family would be ashamed of me.
Of course
I have
not.
children and grandchildren, and that's the way I want it.
Well, the whole reason we're doing this podcast is to try and bridge this generational gap, to
Exactly.
try and
Exactly.
digest a little bit of this wisdom. And
See,
we can.
That's where wisdom comes from. Mm-hmm. I'm a wise old man. I'm not necessarily smart, but I'm a wise old man. And don't get involved in that stuff. Don't get involved. Because they say there's a lot of money in it or quick money or whatever, but in the end, it's going to destroy you.
Everything has a price. And with that, we'll end the episode.
That's correct.
Bring that desktop audio down.
So live a good life. Have some principles. Believe in our Creator. And I'm not preaching religion or nothing like that here, but I think we all of us to believe in God. There's somebody who made all this thing. The planets, the universe, made us, made the robots we just saw a while ago, because he gave us the intelligence to make the robots. It's not the other way around. Did I tell you the story about the scientists and God?
No. Is it a joke?
No. Well, no, it's not a joke, but it's kind of cute.
Okay.
The scientist was talking to God one day, mm-hmm. and he was a brilliant scientist. And he said to God, he says, God, I'm just almost as smart as you are. He says, God says, what do you mean? He said, well, I can make a plant. I can make a plant. Oh, and God says, yeah, can you really make a plant? He says, yes. Then God says, well, how do you do it? He said, well, it's very easy. He said, I get a seed, and I put it into the ground. I cover it with dirt, and then I put some water. I let the sun hit the dirt. The dirt will heat up, and whammo, in a few days, here comes this beautiful plant. I can do that. He says, like you can do that. And God says, yeah. What, you going to put dirt on it? Do you have your own dirt? Because I made the dirt, and I made the seed, and I made the sun. Now, if you can make your own sun and make your own dirt and make your own seed and make your own water, that's fine. Can you do that? No. Well, then you're not that smart. God made everything. He has to. We have no choice. Now, some of us do not believe in that, and that's fine. You can believe in anything you want to. Because remember, we're exercising our will. If you don't want to believe in God, that's fine. That you're exercising your will. God gave you the freedom to not believe. And that's fine. That's fine with me. It's fine with everybody else. But I'm telling you personally, that's the way I believe. That we have a creator, that we have a God, and then someday, somehow, and I don't know in what form, we're going to be possibly reunited with him or her, that spirit.
There's a lot of those near-death experiences from people making those accounts of saying going back to this,
I'll tell you why,
source of light, source of love.
When I have been
psychedelic experiences leading back to that same road of a one universe.
Just imagine how much you love your children. See, you don't have any children.
I don't. I can't really.
And you don't
perceive
know.
That yet. No.
You will not know the true meaning of love until you have children. And then when you have children, you're going to find out really what love is all about. Because love, the love that you have for your children is an unconditional love. It's a love beyond anything. You would gladly give your life for one of your children. Gladly, without even thinking about it. And so when we have children, then you really know love, in the purest form. I have a grandson. He had a child. And why are you smiling?
I'm just enjoying the story.
I have a grandson, and he had a child, and they had about 2.5 years ago. And he has a little Mateo. He's about 2.5 years now. And I see him, how he caters to Mateo now and protects him any way that he can. And the other day I told him, now you know what love really is, because you have a son now. And I asked him, would you give your life for Mateo? He said, yes, I would.
Now here's a question. Would you sacrifice that kid for the greater sense of the universe?
That I don't know.
That is the story of Christ. The
That's
God
right.
Letting the Son go about.
Our Lord died for our sins.
That's a hard question, because it's a very difficult thing to go let the kid run off into the world.
But that's because he was God. We're not God.
You're right. We're not.
But I cannot answer that question. All I can tell you that personally, I have children and grandchildren, and I would give my life in an instant for any one of them. In an instant. If they came, somebody had a gun, and he said, I'm going to kill your grandson or your daughter or whatever, either one or the other, either you or them. I said, kill me. It doesn't matter. I would gladly give my life. And that is unconditional love. When you love somebody unconditionally. There's no conditions.
I mean, sometimes that goes awry. This is when murderers are getting convicted in trial, and their moms are still saying, no, he's good. He would never hurt. And they're like, lady, the evidence, he admitted it.
That's correct. You see that all the time.
She sticks by the son's side. It's a bizarre phenomenon.
Now we have to define if the parent is a good parent. Some parents are not, but on a normal parent, that we were talking about goodness a while ago.
Yeah.
That humanity in general terms is good.
Okay.
How can you 500 policemen control the actions of 700,000 people in Albuquerque? It's impossible. They control themselves. They're good people. They obey traffic laws. They get vaccinated. They do all kinds of things. Whatever they have to do, they will do it in order to be good citizens.
I agree, which is, I think, why we don't need to force citizens to do all kinds of things that, historically countries have tended to do.
In some ways, you're correct. But I'm saying that that's a goodness of people.
I believe it. Yeah, I'm on the same page. Most people are probably on the good side.
Well, there's a will.
There's a will.
What will kicks in all the time. If you want to get vaccinated, you can get vaccinated. If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your will.
If you want to have sex with a robot, make sure the robot is consenting if it's got a soul. And if it doesn't have a soul, then I guess.
But whatever decision you make, it also has consequences. If you get vaccinated, it has consequences. If you do not get vaccinated, it also has consequences. If you raise your child, it has consequences. If you do not raise your child, it also has consequences.
And if you're too domineering and too controlling of your child, that can have quite a negative effect. You have to let them make their own mistakes if they're. This is like Jordan Peterson.
Again, you need to let the child exercise his will. Yeah. Because God gave the child his will also, to a certain extent. But remember, you're the parent. You have to lay the perimeters. People ask me, "Did you spank your daughters when they were growing up?" I say, "Yes, a couple of times." My father spanked me when I was growing up. Whipped me a couple of times. What are you doing? Is that a sound effect?
Yeah, it's a whip.
Whoa, whip, okay. My dad whipped me a couple of times.
Yeah, me too.
And he whipped you.
Yeah.
And I know...
That's what you get for being a piece of shit.
And his father whipped your father, your grandfather.
At what point do we end the whipping? No, we're gonna end this here because we're hitting a little over an hour and a half now. I want to play these dolphins exercising their free will on the pufferfish, and we're just gonna. I've been excited to show this a little bit, but make sure that we've got the little video up and ready. Do we have that one with the whale up and ready to go, Cameron? Well, there's the dolphins, but where's the whale? It's a VLC. Let's see. Can we go to the file? No, it's actually a media playback. I'll find it here real quick. Where's my mouse? Cheese Louise, pepper cheese. All right. Just real quick. I think we lost it. There it is. We'll just pause this. Alrighty, Roo. Here we go. This will be fun. My mouse disappeared. Okay. Okay, so these are dolphins, and apparently the toxins in pufferfish make them high. If this video will play.
Were people able to hear you on a microphone?
Yeah, the room will probably pick it up a little bit. I think maybe just reload it.
What are we seeing?
Dolphins are passing a pufferfish.
Attacking a what?
They're passing a pufferfish. They're chewing on a pufferfish.
Okay.
God, that's total fail. I totally failed at this whole reaction video. Nah, you didn't want to see that stuff anyways. So fate has spoken. I was going to try a thing with like a whale eating a person, but you don't like that stuff anyways. So we'll listen to fate.
Okay.
I'll put the video up because I made an edit of it earlier. I like it. So we can roll the credits now. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for tuning in. This is Val de la O.
I'm Tyler de la O. You can catch us on all the social media platforms.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you very much.
For putting up with us.
Yes, thank you.
We're just about to take off, I suppose, aren't we? A few moments. There's the flight. Who's that man over there?
Director right there.
He's a flight director. He's supposed to give you the word.
Yeah.
We're just about to take off, I suppose, aren't we? A few moments. There's the flight. Who's that man over there?
Director right there.
He's a flight director. He's supposed to give you the word.
Yeah.
Juan, ahí ves tú que están ascendiendo no solo uno, sino muchos, pero muchos globos. El último día de este festival ascienden más de 250 globos al mismo tiempo. Es una cosa tan extraordinaria, tan fantástica, que se ve el cielo, pero cubierto completamente de globos. Y ahí desde luego va Charles Lindbergh de la O para ascender en el globo.